Hello, everyone. My name is Abby Johnson, and I'm so glad to be with you today and to share a little bit. I know that as it's been talked about, maybe some of us are feeling a little disappointed with how things are going with the start of 2021. But I know a lot of people talk about how they have words of the year, or I've never really been one to do that. But I do have to say, if I did have to pick a word of the year, my word would be hope. And maybe some of you think that's a little cheesy, especially for me. But I do have to say, I am feeling hopeful for 2021. 2020, we sort of saw what happens when people don't rise up and talk about their beliefs. We saw what happens when Christians roll over and allow their constitutional rights to be taken away from them. And I feel very hopeful that in 2021, we won't allow that to happen again. I feel very hopeful that especially the pro-life movement will more than ever begin to rise up and do what we do the very best. And that is get involved and take our place once again in the grassroots movement. Now, I know that many people are disappointed with what happened in the presidential race. I know many people are maybe even more disappointed in what happened in our Senate races. But look, when Trump was in office, abortion still took place. And now that we have a new president, abortions will still take place. And believe it or not, about the same number of abortions will take place, no matter who's in the White House. And so when I talk about pro-lifers really running a ground game, that's what I mean. I mean that we are strongest on the ground. We are strongest when we are strong at the grassroots level. So a lot of times we've heard over this past year, we heard over and over again that abortions decrease the most when a Democratic president is in office. And a lot of people will say, that's because they want us to believe that that's because of, maybe the policies of that particular Democratic president. But actually, nothing could be further from the truth. And I'm going to tell you exactly why abortions decrease under those Democratic presidents. Namely, abortion decreased the most under President Obama. And I'll tell you why that was. It had nothing to do with President Obama's policies. It had nothing to do with federal policy, because abortions really don't make a whole lot of difference depending on who's in the White House. The number doesn't really matter much, depending on who's in the White House. The reason that we saw a vast decline in abortions when Obama was in office was because we had never seen a stronger pro-life movement. When Obama was in office, we saw amazing pro-life gains at the grassroots level, particularly in state legislatures. We saw record number state legislative gains all across this country. And I'll just take Texas, for example, because that's where I actually live. We saw in Texas a record number of pro-life legislation passed in the 8 years that Obama was in office. Those legislative gains created an almost 30% decrease in abortion over those 8 years. It had nothing to do with federal policy. It had nothing to do with any programs, any government programs. It had nothing to do with anything that had been done from the White House. It had everything to do with what had been done at the state level. It had everything to do with what Texas pro-lifers, what the grassroots movement had been doing at the state level. That happened not just in Texas, but across the country. Friends, I believe that maybe during these 4 years, maybe, possibly, I'm just sort of talking here. I believe that possibly the pro-life movement might have become a little complacent, maybe a little apathetic, maybe thinking that the President of the United States was going to solve abortion for us, that he was going to solve this problem. Or maybe some people thought, well, I voted for the pro-life guys, so I did my job. But see, that's not our only job. Actually, far from it. That's like a little tiny part of our job in the pro-life movement. What really makes us pro-life is not simply just who we voted for, but what really makes us pro-life is what we do on the ground. Are we going out and praying in front of clinics where abortions are taking place? Are we volunteering and supporting our local pregnancy resource centers? Are we being bold and unabashedly pro-life everywhere we go? One of the reasons that the pro-abortion movement has gained so much ground is because they are willing to be unabashedly pro-abortion everywhere they go, on social media, with their friends and their communities, even in their churches. And sometimes I feel like we in the pro-life movement are a little scared to be bold about our beliefs because, I don't know what, we're scared to offend people, or that time has to come to a close, guys. We have to stop worrying about offending one another and start worrying about offending the heart of God. We have to start worrying about offending these innocent, unborn children in the womb. Let's start worrying about them. Let's stop worrying about what people think about us. Who cares? You're not put on this earth to see how many friends you can get on Facebook or how many people like you at the lunch table or whatever. That's not why you're here. I'm not here to see how many people I can accumulate on my Twitter feed. In fact, I don't really care what people think about me at all. What I care about is the work that I do to defend our most vulnerable, and our most vulnerable are human beings in the womb. That's it. The abortion lobby has done such a good job at influencing our culture. They're influencing it all around us. I mean, we even saw over the past couple of years them influencing movies. And that's part of what we have to combat, are all of the lies that are out there about abortion. And we need to combat those lies boldly. See, people don't understand the reality of abortion because they have been sold a lie about abortion. There was a movie that, two movies that came out recently over the past year. One was called Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always. And another one came out a few months ago called Unpregnant. And both of the movies were sort of similar. It was about, a girl that got pregnant and she, wants to go have an abortion. And in Never, Rarely, Sometimes, Always, the young girl, she takes a bus, and along the way she, meets a quirky guy, and, they have this, road trip to go get an abortion. And it was the same sort of premise with Unpregnant. Girl wants to get an abortion. She tells her weird, quirky friend that she needs to have an abortion. The quirky friend and her, they set off on a road trip, on an adventure, across the country to go get an abortion. Both of these stories, they end up going to the clinic, and there's all of these cool, weirdo, clinic workers that are so fun, and, and then they go to have their fun abortion, right? And then abortion is portrayed as this bloodless, pain-free, sterile, just loads of fun, sort of glamorized procedure, not even really surgery. But friends, that's not what abortion is. Abortion is painful. It is incredibly bloody. It can leave women infertile. Women have an increased risk of breast cancer. It can leave permanent physical and emotional scars. We know that women who have abortions they're more likely to have depression, eating disorders, commit suicide. Abortion is not fun. It's not painless. And in the end, an innocent human being dies. I mean, that's the reality of abortion. And inside of those clinics are not quirky, crazy abortion clinic workers. Inside of those clinics are abortion workers who are broken people, many of them who have had abortions themselves. From what we know, according to Planned Parenthood's own numbers and the numbers that we have from, and then there were none, about 70% of those who work in the abortion industry have gone through their own trauma of abortion. These are hurting people. They're people who work in clinics and piece these body parts of babies back together. They're traumatized themselves. But this is what our society has done. To abortion, we've sanitized it, we've glamorized it, we've romanticized it. And we've told women that having an abortion makes you empowered, it makes you feel powerful. But the reality is that empowered women don't have abortions. Weak women have abortions. Women have abortions when they feel weak. And I say this as a woman who has had 2 abortions. The whole idea of being pro-choice is such a lie. Women don't walk into abortion clinics saying, man, I'm so excited to exercise my right to choose today. Women walk into abortion clinics because they feel like they have no other choice. There's no choice in abortion. That's why one study said almost 70% of women state that they felt forced or coerced to have an abortion. That's not choice. Guys, these are things that you must know. These are statistics, these are facts. These are things that you are really obligated to know. If you want to be an effective pro-lifer, if you want to be an effective apologist for the unborn, for their mothers, then we have to know our opponents. We have to know our opponents. We have to know their games. We have to know their tricks. This is a war. And the primary victim in this war are innocent human lives. Can you imagine if the United States went to war with someone and we said, we don't really know much about our target. We're just going to go in there and we're going to wing it. By and large, that's a lot of times what we do in the pro-life movement. Now is the time, friends, to get focused, to find a strategy. Do it with your own pro-life groups, your own student groups. Do it within your churches, within your communities. It's time to get smart. It's time to find a strategy. And it's time to be bold with our convictions. Bold like maybe you've never been before. And hey, you might lose some friends over it. And if you do, you do. If you have friends that think it's okay to kill an innocent human being in the womb, are those really people that you want to be friends with anyway? Don't be scared to share truth. Don't be scared to share truth and worry about offending other people, because my goodness, people who believe in the right to abortion are not scared to offend you. They are oh so happy to offend you. Don't be scared to share the truth, because the truth could literally save a life. But remember, when we're sharing the truth, we must also be charitable, because you never know who's watching. I think for all those years that I worked at Planned Parenthood, and all the times that I went to ProLife events as a spy, all those times that I sat in and listened to ProLife talks, I'm thankful that for all those many hours that I sat in and listened, every time that someone talked about abortion clinic workers, I'm thankful that they were charitable when they talked about us. Because if they had not been, if they had called me or someone like me a murderer, if they had called me a baby killer over and over again, if they had said uncharitable things, if they had said mean things, maybe I wouldn't be here today standing in front of you. Maybe it would have turned my heart away from the pro-life movement. So just remember that you never know who's watching. It's not just about winning an argument, guys. It's not just about being right. This is also about winning souls. It's about doing the right thing. But it's not about being a clanging gong. It's not about beating people over the head with truth. It's about planting seeds of truth and allowing the Holy Spirit to usher them in. I want to thank you all so much for your commitment to the unborn, for your commitment to life. Stay safe out there, and God bless you.